My phone buzzed at 7:12 a.m., that awkward hour when bad news feels credible because your brain hasn't fully woken up. The caller ID read Dad. I hesitated a moment. He rarely calls this early unless he wants something or has an announcement with weight. I answered, hello. His voice was flat, rehearsed. Grandpa died last night, funeral Friday. He left us everything. You get nothing. For a moment, I didn't breathe. Not from shock, but because I could hear my mother in the background laughing. Not softly, not sadly, but a bright laugh like a joke she'd been saving for months. Then her voice, clear and deliberate. Finally, you're out. I could have argued, screamed, begged for details, but I didn't. I looked at the kitchen table. Grandpa was right there, alive, holding his coffee mug as if nothing could move him unless he chose. His hands were older, thin skin, prominent veins, but steady. His eyes were calm, alert, the kind of calm born from certainty, not ignorance. On the table sat a sealed envelope. Thick paper, attorney letterhead, my name handwritten neatly. The seal wasn't decorative, it snapped when broken. Evidence, not sentiment. I didn't respond to my father or react to my mother's laugh. I pressed a button, put the call on speaker, and slid the phone across the table like a microphone between me and Grandpa. My father kept talking, assuming my silence meant victory. You thought you were smart, he said, cutting us off, acting independent. Now it doesn't matter. The house, the accounts, the land, everything is ours. I watched Grandpa. No anger, no shock, just a slight tightening of his jaw, marking each lie like a judge. My mother leaned in, sweetening her tone, making cruelty sound reasonable. Come to the funeral, she said, or don't. Either way, you're not family anymore. Grandpa's gaze shifted to the envelope. He didn't open it. He tapped the seal once, quietly, as if noting a line they hadn't read yet. My father's voice sharpened. Are you even listening? I kept my voice steady. I'm listening. He exhaled, disappointed I wasn't crying. Good. Then do the right thing. Stay away from the attorney's office. We've handled it. Handled. The word made my stomach drop. In his mouth, handled meant signatures, paperwork, someone cornered when too emotional to resist. Then I noticed something else. Grandpa's left hand rested on a thin manila folder beside the envelope, plain, unassuming, letting the paper speak for itself. He had come prepared. My father continued, voice gaining confidence over my quiet on the line. We're driving to the cabin tomorrow, taking inventory. We'll send you whatever personal junk is left. My mother laughed again. If there's anything worth sending. I stared at the phone. The call timer ticked. 7:13, 7:14, proof this was real. Then Grandpa leaned slightly toward the phone, deliberate, measured. His eyes met mine for a second. A silent question. Are you ready? I nodded once. He picked up the sealed envelope, held it at eye level, then set it down and placed 2 fingers on the manila folder. He didn't open either. He just listened. My father carried on, commanding, assuming no one could resist him. Don't cause problems. You'll embarrass yourself. It's done. Grandpa's expression stayed calm. His thumb slid the envelope closer to the phone, positioning it for the moment it mattered. Then he leaned in and spoke toward the speaker. Hello. The laughter stopped immediately. My father didn't speak. My mother didn't breathe. For 2 seconds, silence and the faint crackle of the line. Then my father's voice returned, thin, disbelieving. Dad? Grandpa didn't answer immediately. He looked at the envelope, then at me, then back at the phone, deciding whether this was a warning or an official start. Whatever my parents had handled, Grandpa had handled something too, and he had proof at my kitchen table. For a few seconds after Grandpa spoke, the line was so quiet I could hear the kitchen light hum. Then my father spoke again, shaky. Dad. My mother remained silent, sharp inhales betraying her tension. Grandpa didn't give them confusion for mercy. He stayed close to the phone, calm as he had always taught me. I heard everything, he said. My father rushed to regain control. Dad, this is a misunderstanding. We got a call. Grandpa interrupted, calm, precise. You didn't say you got a call. You said you got everything. My father fell silent again. My mother's voice slipped in next, soft and sweet like honey over broken glass. Dad, thank God, she said, almost crying on cue. We were so scared. We thought... Grandpa didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. You laughed, he said. One sentence, one fact, and it landed heavier than any accusation. My mother's sweetness cracked. That wasn't, she started. I'm sitting here, Grandpa continued, with your granddaughter at her kitchen table. with a sealed envelope from my attorney. My father's tone shifted, less theatrical, more urgent. Why are you with her? He demanded. She's been poisoning you against us. Grandpa's eyes met mine briefly. Then he looked back at the phone, as if speaking to strangers. Not family. I'm with her, he said, because I knew you'd try something the moment you thought you could. My stomach tightened. Grandpa wasn't guessing. He was confirming. My father tried another approach, louder now, as if volume could erase evidence. Are you even thinking clearly? He snapped. Do you know what day it is? It's Tuesday, he said. And at 7:12 this morning, you called my granddaughter to tell her I was dead. He paused. And you told her to stay away from the attorney's office. My pulse jumped. That wasn't a random warning. That was a plan. My mother's voice returned, sharper. We said that because she causes problems. She shows up and makes scenes. Grandpa stayed flat. She shows up with documents, he said. That's what you're afraid of. Then he shifted the call entirely. He didn't argue morals. He asked a procedural question. Why did your bank receive a death notification request at 6:48 a.m.? My breath caught. I looked at Grandpa sharply. I hadn't known that. My father made a sound, half cough, half choke. What? What are you talking about? Grandpa slid the manila folder toward me and opened it for the first time. Inside was a single printed page with a bank logo and an alert header. He tapped it once and angled it toward the phone, as if my father could see through the speaker. This is an automated fraud alert, Grandpa said. It came to my email at 6:52 a.m., 4 minutes after someone tried to initiate a deceased customer process under my name. My mother's voice thinned. That's not us. Grandpa didn't debate. He read the line that mattered. It lists the submitting contact as... He paused and looked down. My son's email. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. This wasn't just talk. A system had been touched, and systems keep logs. My father raised his voice again, desperate. That's fake. She's showing you fake paperwork. Grandpa didn't blink. It came from the bank, he said. Not from her. Then he leaned closer to the speaker, his voice still calm but colder. Here's what's going to happen. At 9 a.m., I have an appointment at my attorney's office. She will be there. This call will be played. My mother's breath hitched. My father tried to interrupt. Dad, you can't. You're done talking, Grandpa said. One sentence. Final. There was a pause, sharp and short, like my father couldn't process being silenced. Then my mother tried one last shift, her voice trembling in the most calculated way. Dad, please. You're not well. You shouldn't be traveling. Let us handle it. Grandpa looked at me, then at the envelope, then back at the phone. I'm well enough to sign, he said, and well enough to revoke anything I've ever given you. Revoke. The word landed hard. Access, accounts, permissions, everything they'd relied on only worked if Grandpa's authority stayed in their hands. My father's tone turned ugly. If you do this, he hissed, you'll regret it. Grandpa didn't react emotionally. He replied with calm that made the threat sound small. I already regret what I tolerated, he said. Then he looked at me. Put the call recording on. I tapped record. The red timer appeared. Grandpa knew exactly why. He wanted their voices, their laughter, their certainty that I was out. He wanted it preserved, because people like my parents rewrite the past the moment control slips. My father realized it too. His voice softened instantly. Dad, listen, we can talk in person. Don't do this in front of strangers. Grandpa stayed steady. You already did, he said. You did it at the bank. Then he added, and someone was at my cabin this morning. I froze. What? Lockbox tamper alert, Grandpa said. 10 minutes ago. My father inhaled sharply, barely audible. Grandpa heard it. He leaned in. Quietly and precisely, he said, tell your cousin to step away from the door. The line went silent for a second. Then, faintly in the background on my father's end, another voice, panicked fast. Hey, someone's here. Grandpa ended the call with one tap. Clean. Final. He slid the sealed envelope toward me. We're going to the attorney, he said. Then we're going to the cabin. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. Just as we stood, my phone buzzed with an alert I'd never seen before. Cabin camera. Front porch motion. I opened it. The live feed loaded. A man stood on Grandpa's porch, tool bag on his shoulder, reaching for the lockbox. Behind him, my father's cousin watched the road, waiting for us to arrive too late. The image sharpened enough to be clear. A stranger doing a job. And behind him, half in frame, half hiding, the cousin who always knew someone. Grandpa watched the screen without blinking. No gasp, no curse, just one nod like a trap finally closing. "Record it," he said. I started screen recording. Proof. Then Grandpa reached into his pocket and pulled out a second phone. Old, simple, already set. He dialed. A man answered on the second ring. "Sheriff's office." "This is Harold," Grandpa said, his voice steady. "I have a live camera feed showing an attempted unlawful entry at my cabin. I am alive. My son is falsely reporting my death." There was a pause. Then the deputy's tone shifted immediately, because real names matter in small counties. "Mr. Carter," the deputy said, "where are you right now?" "On my way to my attorney," Grandpa replied, "but I need a unit at my cabin immediately." He gave the address from memory, without checking anything. Then he added one more line, casual in sound but sharp in effect. "And I want the responding unit to note this. There was a bank death notification attempt made this morning using my son's email." The deputy didn't question it. "Understood. We're dispatching." Grandpa ended the call and looked at me. "Keys," he said. "Folder. Envelope." I grabbed everything. We got into his truck. Despite my protests, Grandpa drove up, pulling out of the driveway with the sealed envelope between us, like something loaded and waiting. On the highway, I kept the cabin feed open. The man with the tool bag shifted, tried the lockbox again, then stood and spoke to my cousin. I couldn't hear audio, but I didn't need it. His gestures were clear. "It's locked. I need a code." My cousin pointed toward the door, impatient. Then came the worst part. The locksmith walked up to the cabin door, as if the lockbox had only been step one. Grandpa's jaw tightened for the first time. He didn't look afraid. He looked offended. Not for himself, but for the house, for the nerve of it. "People like that," he said quietly, "don't stop when paperwork fails." 20 minutes later, we pulled into the attorney's parking lot. The office was calm and polished. Glass doors, neutral carpet, framed certificates. The kind of place where families pretend to be reasonable because the walls are beige. Inside, the attorney greeted Grandpa with professional warmth, then glanced at me as if she already knew who I was. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm glad you're here in person." Grandpa nodded toward me. "She stays with me." Then he placed the sealed envelope on the desk. "Before we do anything," he said, "I want my son's call recorded and preserved." The attorney's eyes sharpened. "You have the call?" I held up my phone. "Recorded. Speaker. Everything." She nodded once. "Good." Grandpa leaned forward, calm and firm. "Now tell me what my son tried to file." The attorney exhaled and turned her screen slightly so Grandpa could see. "There was an inquiry this morning," she said. "From your son. He asked whether a death certificate had been issued yet and whether he could proceed with immediate estate administration. My stomach dropped. He asked for a death certificate. Grandpa didn't react. "Yes," he said, as if it confirmed exactly what he expected. The attorney clicked again. "There was also an attempted change request," she continued, "to update beneficiary contact information on 2 accounts." Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Which accounts?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "The investment account," she said, "and the cabin property file." Grandpa leaned back, and in that moment, the picture became clear. This wasn't about cutting me out emotionally. It was about locking me out fast enough to move money and access without interference. Grandpa opened the manila folder and slid the bank alert across the desk. The attorney looked down, read it, and her expression changed. "That's a fraud alert," she said quietly. "Exactly," Grandpa replied. Then he tapped the sealed envelope once. "Now we open this." The attorney nodded, watching him closely, like she knew the next few minutes would decide whether this stayed a family dispute or became a criminal file. Grandpa broke the seal slowly. No shaking hands, no hesitation. He pulled out a letter and a second, thicker document with an official stamp. He read one line silently, then slid it toward the attorney. "I want this filed today." She read it and went still. Then she looked up, her voice lower. "This appoints an executor," she said. "Not your son." Grandpa nodded. "And it denies him access?" she added, almost surprised by how direct it was. "Yes," Grandpa said, "because I know him." My throat tightened. The attorney swallowed and placed the document into a tray marked urgent. "We can file this," she said, professional again, "but once it's filed, your son will be notified." "Let him," Grandpa said. Then he leaned toward her. "And I want one more thing. A statement on the record that I'm alive, because he's already telling people I'm dead." She nodded sharply. We can do that. She printed a form. Grandpa signed clean, deliberate. Then she turned her screen toward me. Your father tried to access your grandfather's estate portal, she said. He used an old password reset question. My stomach dropped. How would he know that? Grandpa answered before I could. Because your mother filled out my forms, he said quietly. For years. The room felt colder. The attorney looked up. Mr. Carter, do you have any reason to believe they possess physical documents with your signature? Grandpa looked at me. Yes, he said. And they tried to steal them this morning. My phone buzzed. Another cabin alert. I opened the feed. 2 sheriff vehicles were now in the driveway, lights flashing against patches of snow. The locksmith and my cousin froze. One deputy stepped out, hand near his belt, and shouted something we couldn't hear. The locksmith raised his hands. My cousin didn't. He backed toward the woods. Grandpa leaned closer to my phone, eyes firm. Don't run, he murmured. On the screen, my cousin bolted out of frame. A deputy followed. The locksmith stayed put. Then, because my family never does just one thing at a time, my phone buzzed again. Not an alert. A call. My father. I stared at the screen. Grandpa did too. He didn't tell me to answer. He slid the phone toward himself and said quietly, Let's see what story he tries now. My father's name glowed on the screen. I didn't touch it. Grandpa did. He hit speaker and answered in the same calm voice he used when he wanted someone to reveal themselves without realizing it. Yes. For half a second, my father didn't speak, like his mind couldn't process hearing a dead man answer. Then he recovered quickly. Dad, he said, suddenly smooth. Thank God. I'm coming to see you. We need to talk privately right now. Grandpa didn't take the bait. About what? He asked. My father exhaled, sounding like the reasonable one. About her, he said. My stomach tightened. She's manipulating you. She's isolating you. People are worried. People. In my family, that word is never about concern. It's about pressure. Grandpa glanced at the attorney. She gave a small nod and quietly tapped a button on her desk phone, recording on her end too. Redundancy. Proof. Grandpa spoke again, steady. At 7:12 this morning, you told my granddaughter I was dead. My father's voice went lighter. False surprise. Dad, I didn't. You did, Grandpa replied calmly, and your wife laughed. Silence. Then my father snapped. Fine. You want the truth? We did it because we had to protect what's ours before she takes it. The attorney looked up. My expression went cold. Grandpa's tone didn't change. What is ours? The estate, my father said quickly, angry now. The accounts, the cabin, the land. Dad, you don't understand how this works. If she gets involved, it turns into a mess. Grandpa leaned slightly toward the speaker, making sure every word landed clean on the recording. She is involved, he said. She's sitting beside me. My father's breath hitched, small but there. Then he pivoted fast. Dad, listen, he said, suddenly softer, almost pleading. Let's not do this through lawyers. I'll come to you. We'll settle it as family. Grandpa didn't blink. You already chose lawyers, he said. You chose the bank at 648. You chose the registry. You chose the lockbox. That last word changed everything. What lockbox? My father asked sharply. Grandpa waited one beat, long enough for the lie to form. Then he said, the one your cousin tried to open 10 minutes ago. Silence again. Then, faint in the background on my father's end, a muffled female voice close to the phone. Don't say anything. My mother. Grandpa heard it. The attorney heard it. I heard it. Grandpa's mouth tightened slightly, but his voice stayed controlled. I can hear her, he said. My father snapped, loud and sharp. She's not there. She is, Grandpa replied, and you're on speaker, and you're being recorded. That word, recorded, shifted everything. My father's tone changed instantly, like a mask snapping into place. Dad, he said carefully, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can handle this quietly. Grandpa gave him nothing. Tell me why you told my granddaughter to stay away from my attorney. There was a hesitation, just long enough. Then my father filled the silence with authority. Because she's unstable, he said. She's had episodes. She twists things. Everyone knows. The attorney's pen stopped. Grandpa's eyes went colder. Everyone doesn't know, Grandpa said. You want it on paper, so she sounds unreliable. My father raised his voice. She's taking advantage of you. She's got you in her kitchen feeding you lies. I'm the one who brought the envelope, Grandpa said flatly, not her. Silence again. Then my father said the sentence that told me this was bigger than the cabin. Dad, the court is already involved. My stomach dropped. The attorney slowly lifted her head. What? Grandpa didn't react outwardly. He asked, calm and precise. What court? My father backpedaled immediately. I mean probate, he said quickly. It's standard. The attorney was already typing. She didn't ask permission. Grandpa watched her for a second, then returned to the call. You filed something, he said. My father's voice rose, panic breaking through. No, I didn't file. I inquired. Grandpa didn't argue. He let the attorney answer. She stared at her screen, clicked twice, then froze. When she spoke, her voice was lower. Mr. Carter, there is a filing. My skin went cold. My father heard her and jumped in. Don't listen to her, he barked. That attorney works for her. She ignored him and kept reading. Emergency petition, she said. Temporary guardianship. The air left my lungs. Guardianship, Grandpa repeated. The attorney glanced at me, then back to Grandpa. It claims you're mentally incapacitated, she said. He claims you're being exploited. My father's voice came through the phone, angry and triumphant at once. It's for your own good. If you won't listen, the court will make you. Grandpa stared at the phone like it had turned foreign. Then he spoke quietly, with a calm sharp enough to scare me. You tried to declare me dead at a bank, he said. And when that failed, he paused, you tried to declare me incompetent in court. My father didn't deny it. He leaned into it. You're not thinking clearly, he hissed. You're acting out of spite. The court will protect you from her. The attorney scrolled again, her face tightening. They requested an expedited hearing, she said. Today. Today. My heart pounded. Grandpa turned slightly and looked at me. Not fear, not sadness, but apology. Because he hadn't just predicted they'd try to take his property, he'd predicted they'd try to take him. Then the attorney added the line that hit even harder. They listed your cabin address as your current residence, she said, to establish control of access through a court order tied to the property. Grandpa's voice stayed steady, colder now. They planned this. My phone buzzed again. Another alert from the cabin camera. The attorney leaned toward my screen. What now? I opened it. The sheriff units were still there. The locksmith sat on the porch steps, and my father's cousin, caught near the tree line, was being walked back toward the driveway in handcuffs. But the deputy holding him wasn't looking at the cousin anymore. He was looking at something in his hand, a folded piece of paper. He opened it, read one line, and his posture changed. Then he lifted his radio and spoke. The attorney leaned closer, eyes narrowing. What is that? I zoomed in on the feed until the pixels broke apart, but I could still make out the top line of the paper the deputy held, temporary guardianship order. Draft. A draft court order, already printed, already at the cabin, as if they were planning to serve it the moment the door opened. My throat went dry. Grandpa stared at the screen, then leaned toward the phone on the table, toward my father still on speaker, and said in a barely audible whisper, You brought the court to my front door. My father's voice responded, low and satisfied. Not yet. Quiet, confident, calculated, it cut like a knife. Grandpa didn't shout or rage. He simply stared, seeing my father clearly, then ended the call. One tap. Silence. The attorney's office felt too clean for what had just unfolded. Okay, she said. Voice all business now. We move fast. She opened a new document and started typing like she'd been waiting for this moment. First, she said, we file an affidavit that Mr. Wang, Carter, is alive and competent. Second, an emergency response to the guardianship petition, including evidence of fraud attempts. Grandpa nodded once, calm and ready. Use the call recording, he said. And the bank alert, I added. And the cabin footage, she said sharply. And the fact your son attempted a death process at the bank at 6:48 a.m., she continued. She looked at Grandpa. I need you to sign a statement right now. Grandpa took the pen without hesitation, writing clean, steady letters. No trembling, no doubt. She printed it immediately and slid it into a folder marked filed today. Then she turned her monitor toward us. There's a hearing request for 2 p.m., she said. They're asking for expedited temporary guardianship. Grandpa's eyes narrowed slightly. They won't get it, the attorney corrected, tapping her screen. Not with this evidence. She clicked again, pulling up attachments from my father's filing. My stomach dropped. There was a supporting statement, a PDF with my name on it. That's not mine, I said, leaning closer. The attorney opened it. It portrayed me as a predator, claimed Grandpa was confused, isolated, easily influenced. It said I'd moved in, restricted access to family, controlled his medication. Medication? He wasn't even on any. My throat tightened. Grandpa stayed calm, but his eyes hardened. "They're building a story," he said. "Yes," the attorney confirmed. "A story designed to make a judge act fast." She scrolled to the signature line. Typed name. Not my father's, not my mother's. A third party. Her voice lowered. "That witness is your father's cousin? The one at the cabin? In cuffs? The one caught with the locksmith?" Grandpa exhaled one controlled breath. "So they wrote the script," he said, "and sent the actor to the stage." The attorney didn't waste a second. She called the judge's clerk. "This is counsel for Mr. Harold Carter. We have an emergency response to a guardianship petition, including evidence of an attempted fraudulent death notification, an active unlawful entry, and live video footage. Yes, I can email it and file immediately." She hung up, looked at Grandpa. "Now we go to the cabin. If they're trying to serve a draft order there, we stop it physically." Grandpa nodded. "We're going." We drove up the mountain with the sheriff's number saved, the attorney's evidence email loaded. I kept sending everything: call recording, bank alert, screenshots of the fake email, lockbox tamper log, porch camera footage. When we turned into the cabin driveway, the scene looked like a storm's aftermath. 2 sheriff units, deputies moving calmly. The locksmith on the porch, pale and shaking. My father's cousin in cuffs near the tailgate, head down, a deputy with a clipboard. The same deputy I'd seen earlier. He saw Grandpa step out. His eyes widened. "You don't forget the face of a man you were told was dead." "Mr. Carter," he said. "Alive," Grandpa replied. The deputy's posture shifted instantly from routine to serious. "Sir," the deputy said, "we recovered a printed draft order on site." He held it up. "Temporary guardianship order, draft." "Who printed that?" Grandpa asked. The deputy looked at the cousin. "He had it in his bag, along with a set of forms and a thumb drive." "Thumb drive." My stomach tightened. The deputy opened an evidence bag, showing the drive through plastic. "Also," he said, "a folder labeled bank and another property." Grandpa's jaw tightened slightly. The attorney wasn't there, but she had told us what mattered most: intent, planning, trail. Now it was all in a deputy's hands. The cousin finally spoke, voice strained, trying to sound helpful. "I was just checking on the place. They asked me to." "Who asked you?" The deputy cut in. The cousin hesitated. Grandpa stepped closer, calm but commanding. "Say his name," he said softly. The cousin swallowed, eyes darting. "Your son." Grandpa didn't react. The deputy wrote it down, then looked at Grandpa again. "Sir, your son called our station earlier asking if we'd confirm you were deceased." Grandpa's eyes hardened. "He called me too?" The deputy nodded. "Yes, and when we said we couldn't verify, he said paperwork was coming." The draft guardianship order wasn't a coincidence. It was that paperwork coming. I stepped onto the porch, looked at the cabin door. The lockbox was scratched. The door frame had fresh marks from the locksmith. A small violation, but loud. Grandpa stepped beside me, looking at the wood like it was wounded. He reached into his coat and pulled out the sealed envelope, the one the attorney had kept unopened for hours. He held it out. "Open it here," he said. "Here?" I whispered. "Here. Here," he repeated, "where they tried to steal the ending." My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside, a single page, simple, direct, a notarized amendment. It didn't just block my father's access. It named him explicitly. It cited the fraud attempts as grounds for immediate restriction and appointed the executive with full authority to freeze accounts and control property access. At the bottom, Grandpa's final line was handwritten, clear and unambiguous. "If anyone claims I'm dead, call the sheriff. If anyone claims I'm incompetent, play the recording." I covered my mouth with my hand. Not crying, just stunned at how far ahead Grandpa had anticipated. The deputy read it and nodded quietly. "That," he said, "is as clear as it gets." Grandpa looked toward the trees, then back at the driveway where his cousin remained in cuffs. Then he turned to me. "They called you to tell you get nothing," he said. My throat tightened as I nodded. "They were right about one thing," Grandpa continued calmly. "You get nothing from them." He placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. "You get your life back." When we left the cabin, deputies were still gathering evidence. The executive was being notified. The bank would have the fraud affidavit by day's end. The attorney would walk into that 2 p.m. hearing with a recording of my parents laughing about my grandfather's death, while he sat alive at my kitchen table. My father thought a single phone call could erase me. Instead, he documented himself. He tried to bring the court to Grandpa's door, but he ended up bringing law enforcement to enforce his own plan. And the simplest truth was the most effective. He didn't lose because I yelled or fought. He lost because I stayed calm long enough for the truth to become a permanent record.